The Utah Jazz have the worst record in the NBA. They're executing this perfectly, and there should be a lot more to come. Next on Locked on Jazz.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
How are you? I'm David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for taking the time to make Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcast apps as well as on YouTube. We also have a free daily newsletter. You can sign up at Locked On Daily to get the Utah Jazz and Locked on Jazz into your inbox each and every day. Thanks so much. Today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. FanDuel, take advantage of all the March Madness. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. On today's show, we will look at the blowout loss to Houston. We got crushed last night. There's not a lot to that. We will look at the fact that the Jazz are committed to the task, have executed it nearly perfectly, and are you ready for 2 more years of this? Because if you're committed, it's actually what you have to do, see the Rockets. But let's start with the Jazz now having the worst record in the NBA. The Washington Wizards won last night, and if the Jazz were to lose out for the season, they would finish the year with the worst record in the NBA, which frankly is what you're supposed to do at this point. The Jazz came into the season wanting to develop their young players. The purpose of the year was with, at the time, 7 players in their third or fewer years. And if you want to count Johnny Juzang, 8. Make sure that you developed those players. That was the priority of the season. And it has not been easy. Frankly, it's been hard. And it's probably tumultuous for fans. It's difficult for the coaches. And it's hard on the players. And it's difficult probably for the game ops people. And it's not easy for for anyone. But the fact is, the key characteristic and the key to doing this whole entire thing is being committed, is not getting cold feet, is not bailing out on it. And the Jazz are 5 games away from really executing this as perfectly as you possibly can. Our 29th pick of the NBA draft, Isaiah Collier, is going to end up playing a ton of minutes. Isaiah Collier is going to cross over possibly 2,000 minutes played as a rookie this year. That's tremendous. Kyle Filipowski is going to play 1,500 minutes as a rookie. Cody Williams turned out to be so far behind. He's done for the season. He played 1,000 minutes. That's not ideal. That one's not ideal. There's no hiding that Cody Williams was not physically, maybe mentally ready to develop. He now knows how hard it is, and we're going to see if he can work. But 1,000 minutes, it's one of the least productive 1,000 minutes of any player in the history of the NBA. As a rookie, particularly as a first-round draft pick, we'll see if he bounces out of it. Bryce Sensabaugh, 1,400 minutes this year. Keontae George, 2,000 more minutes this year. So that has been executed exactly as it should be. That was the goal coming in. The Taylor Hendricks injury, huge setback, monstrous setback. At the time, I think it had a year or two's worth of impact. Could slow down our timeline by a year. Moved away from it, doesn't feel as severe, but I think it was. If we actually think our analysis on the day in which Taylor Hendricks got hurt it's massive. It delays our ability we can't evaluate him next year. We can't probably until the year after. One of our biggest assets, one of our biggest projects. He looks huge. He looks great. Yeah, he hasn't played basketball. And he was way behind the curve on basketball. That was bad. Things don't go smoothly in this process. And you got, and that's the whole thing. This isn't fun. This isn't easy. And you have to be committed to the task. And the Jazz are executing it perfectly. As of right now, the Jazz will be guaranteed a top 5 pick in the NBA draft. Now, we'll see what happens with the next 5 games in Washington, things. The Cooper flag odds stay the same. The top 4 odds stay the same. But if you're the number 1 pick, and the worst possibility at the end of lottery days, you're the 5th pick of the draft. And the truth is, and we'll get into this in a second, if you commit to the task and you really do it, it works. It works almost every time. There's some minor exceptions, and I'll walk you through them here in a minute, but it works. The key is whether you've got the stomach for it. And right now, the Jazz are 5 games away from having the stomach for it. And again, doesn't mean it all goes perfectly. Taylor Hendricks injury, brutal. Cody Williams first year, not good. But we're learning about Keontae. Both good and bad, frankly. He's in another slump. Get out of it. Let's go. He was not in a great mindset last night, if you watched the game. He played 10 minutes in the first half, kind of got pulled. Was feckless. It happens. This is part of the process. Kyle Filipowski is worn out, beaten to all ends. Can't make a shot again. Okay. See if he bounds out of it. He did last time. This is the part of the process. This is how hard it is. Alfred Şengün bullied Kyle Filipowski last night. It's part of the process. Process, whatever you want. I don't mean to use the 76ers term. But the fact is, the Houston Rockets won their 50th game last night, are going back to the playoffs for the first time since they traded James Harden, will be the number 2 seed with Denver's loss last night to San Antonio. Boy, that Denver-Minnesota game, I am sour about that. And they lost 60 games, I think, for 3 years in a row. I think they didn't win more than 22 games for 3 years in a row. And that's what it takes. And that's the next step here. Not only were the Jazz committed this year, but at least in my opinion, if you commit this year and you're going to go through this year, you got to do it next year. And you frankly got to do it the year after too. So we've done this 5 games away from doing this once. Are you ready for 2 more seasons? Because if you're going to commit to this route, and this route works, and this route acquires talent, and this is the best way you can acquire talent, and this is how you develop young players. You throw them into the ocean. You try not to overdip the Oreo cookie. And with Cody Williams, mono might be a blessing. But the fact is, where this fails is not bad culture, is not learning how to lose. It's not actually being committed. This fails when you don't really buy into it. When you don't really have the stomach for it. And at least in year 1, the Jazz have had the stomach for it, are executing it perfectly. And now the question is going to be, do they have year 2 and year 3 in them? And I'll explain next why you have to have year 2 and year 3 in you to do this. On Locked On Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by FanDuel. FanDuel, with March Madness here, has all the excitement and a great way for you to stay in the game. The NCAA tournament is here. FanDuel is giving you the action like never before. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories to even who's cutting down the nets. Picking your favorite team, an underdog, a little fun around March Madness, game props, all the rest around the Final Four. Get in the action. The tournament games are happening, and there's always something exciting to bet on the Final Four or the men's or the women's tournament. The FanDuel app is simple to use. When you win, you get paid instantly. No waiting around. So visit FanDuel.com and get into the college hoops action for the final weekends of the year. FanDuel Sportsbook has every deal you could, or every kind of odd and line you could imagine. All sorts of fun props going on. Plus Major League Baseball, a great deal of fun as well. Final four odds right now. Florida is a 2.5-point favorite over Auburn, and Duke is a 5.5-point favorite over Houston. Boy, Houston's defense is really good. Plus, you can have every team scores over 25 in each half. You can bet that. Every team to score 70. You can just pick the winners, various things of that nature, MVPs. On the women's end, by the way, South Carolina, 4.5-point favorite over Texas, and UConn is a 7.5-point favorite against UCLA. Thanks very much for making Locked On Jazz your first listen of the day, free and available on all podcasting apps, as well as YouTube. It is the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Daily newsletter, get Locked On Jazz in your inbox waiting for you each day with a breakdown of everything going on, plus national articles by Katie Heindel. Mike Schrayer today on the Thursday edition. He does a great job with your exclusive national content as well. All right. Here's the reality. Well, I said what I said in the last segment. The Atlanta Hawks from 04 to 07 had one of the 5 worst records for 3 straight years and then made the playoffs for 10 straight years. The Atlanta Hawks had the worst record in the NBA, or one of the 5 worst records in the NBA from 2017 to 2020 for 3 straight years, and then made the Eastern Conference Finals in the first round of the playoffs. The Cleveland Cavaliers had the worst record, one of the 5 worst records in the NBA from 2011 to 2013. And in 3 years, they were in the title and they were in the finals. And then they did it again from 2018 to 2021. And they've been in the first round, the second round, and this year they have the first seed. The Detroit Pistons did it from 0, and they've had to do it for 4 years. For 4 straight years, they had one of the 4 worst records in the NBA. And this year, they're a top 4 seed in the Eastern Conference. Maybe they've slid to 5th now with their injuries. But it worked. We saw it last night. Houston Rockets. 3 straight years. 2 straight years with the worst record in the NBA. Knocked on the door. They're now the 2nd seed in the Western Conference. It worked. The Lakers did it for 3 straight years, proceeded to make the playoffs. The Grizzlies did it for 2 years and then made the playoffs for 8 straight years. The Minnesota Timberwolves screwed it up. Okay, it happens. They had one of the 5 worst records for 4 straight years. Then went 3 years where they didn't. Then they had the worst record for 2 more years, and then now finally they're back. The Minnesota Timberwolves are the model how it didn't work. The Pelicans had one of the worst records for 2 years, not for 3, and they've been kind of on the edge. The Oklahoma City Thunder from 2006 to 2009 had one of the 5 worst records for 3 years and made the playoffs for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 straight years, including NBA Finals and 4 Western Conference Finals. Then they had the worst record for 2, or one of the 5 worst records for 2 straight years, and now they're the number 1 seed. The Orlando Magic kind of screwed it up. They had the worst record for one of the 5 worst records. That's the key, 5 worst records for 3 straight years. Then for 2 years, then for a year they didn't. Then they went back to doing it. Then they made the playoffs. Then they went back to do it. Well, now they're back. So they kind of screwed this up. Philadelphia went all in. They went 4 straight years of having one of the 5 worst records, and this will be the first time they don't make the playoffs in 8 seasons. The Phoenix Suns went all in for 4 years with one of the 5 worst records, made the NBA Finals, and this will be the first time they don't make the playoffs in 4 years. How long it lasts is up to you, but it generally works. The Sacramento Kings from 2008 to 2012 had the worst record in the NBA for one of the worst records in the NBA for 4 straight years, one of the 5 worst, and they screwed it up. But then, for all the other talk about the Sacramento Kings, what they did is they then didn't. That got them into a level of like just hovering in the middle for 10 years is what it did. The San Antonio Spurs and their multiple one-year tanks is well known. The Washington Wizards, for 4 years, had one of the 5 worst records in the NBA and proceeded to make the playoffs. Even the Washington Wizards, 4 of the next 6 years. Like, this is how you acquire talent. It works. 1 for 1 Atlanta. 2 for 2 Atlanta. You do this for 3 years. Cavaliers 3 for 3. Cavaliers 4 for 4. Detroit for 4 years. But still, let's call it, that's the model. 5 for 5. Houston, 3 years. 6 for 6. Lakers, I'm just going to take out because they play free agency in the middle of it. Minnesota screwed it up, 6 for 7. Oklahoma City, 7 for 8 and 8 for 9. Orlando screwed it up, 8 for 10. Philadelphia 76ers did it for 4 years, but it got them to the playoffs every year till this year. 9 for 11. Phoenix Suns did it, worked, 10 of 12. Sacramento screwed it up, 10 of 13. Washington got to the playoffs every year, 11 of 14. Okay. Since 2004, 14 teams have had a bottom 5 record for 3 or more years, and 11 of them had a playoff run that follows. Now, if your standard is only championship, nothing actually works. So you can claim, if you want to like chime in and say, well, I didn't win a championship for all those teams. Yeah, you're right. There actually is no model that wins a championship all the time. You actually can't build that. But the success rate of committing to player development, you have to have one of the 5 worst records in the NBA. Like, that's the key. We're in year 1. Rockets, who we saw last night, were in year 4. 3 years of losing, 1 year of changing the roster into personality, and now they're ready to go. And now whether they have enough talent to be a championship team or whatever, I don't think so. They'll probably have to consolidate. But it's way better. It just took 3 years, 1 year of getting it together and then going. That's pretty consistent. But it works. So the question is, are the Jazz, for our standpoint, as fans, are the Jazz committed again and again? And are you committed again and again? Because that's what it takes. It's not go into this season, off season, move John Stockton, move Colin Sexton, John Collins, and Jordan Clarkson for a bunch of peace. No. Might even bring them back because they understand what's going on and they know how to do it and they're prepared for it. And they have 1 more year in their contract. And they won't blow up the boat. And they've been great with the youngsters. And you commit. And Kyle Filipowski gets 2,000 minutes. And Keontae George gets another 2,600 minutes, hopefully, this time. And Collier gets another 2,600 minutes, hopefully. And Cooper Flagg gets 2,600 minutes. And Bryce Sensabaugh probably gets 1,800 minutes. And Cody Williams and Taylor Hendricks come along. And that's your club next year. And the same result. And then the next year, Cooper and AJ are together. And you probably go 1 more year with it. And now you start to pare down. He's still shooting 39%, you move on. Kyle's figures out his defense, and you know you got a piece. And Walker fits in here somewhere. And that's your pieces. And then you start to add. And actually, for the Jazz, what will be interesting is in the summer of that second draft when we get AJ, after we get Cooper, will be when you have some cap money. And do you use it, or do you keep your powder dry and let it develop? The Rockets did is really interesting. Rockets had a bunch of cap money, a bunch of stuff. They just kept it dry. See it develop. And it's worked out pretty well for them. All right, last night wasn't great. I don't want to just ignore it. Blown out by Houston. Few things of concern. Also a lot of sympathy. But that's next as we continue on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. Right. If you're a Jazz fan, losses don't give you juice. Maybe the answer is a little 5 Hour Energy. Daylight savings sneaks up on you. Jazz losses wear you down, whatever it might be. You're just on the road all the time. 5 Hour Energy has your back, the extra sunshine, the extra juice. Sometimes you get that boost through 5 Hour Energy. Whether you're staying up late, watching tournaments, watching ball games, just keeping busy, massive work day, 5 Hour Energy gives you the quick, refreshing pick-me-up whenever you need it. Kids just worn you out. Teaching school, it's too much. 5 Hour Energy there for you to help you out. Extra, give you a little extra activity, give you your quick go-to boost with amazing flavors. 15 of them, in fact, at 5hourenergy.com. Including watermelon, blue raspberry, peach mango. You can even build your own 12-pack or 24-pack delivered right next to your door. We need to discuss mango at some point. They build own 12 or 24-pack and have it sent right to your door, so you always have a ready 5 Hour Energy shot. Or if you need it right now and it sounds so good and you're like, gosh, I need one of those, then grab a 5 Hour Energy at your local grocery store or convenience store because they're everywhere. Stock up today. Stay energized with 5 Hour Energy. Jazz got worked last night by the Houston Rockets. There was one bright spot. I thought Isaiah Collier played with a level of force, downhill activity, understanding of what he could do, how to combat their switching defense, and being aggressive that's going to hold for him for a long time. So, I mean, these are all learning experiences. And one of the things that happens often with switching defenses is that players get static. They come off the pick, it's switched. They're like, what Collier figured out last night was, wait a sec, they still got to make an adjustment. Will puts us in pretty good situations. I'm coming off the pick. I'm getting downhill. He opened the night. The other thing I thought was great about Collier last night is he opened the night with 2 threes and then didn't just fall in love with it. He's not a great shooter. Will had a great line pregame, like, don't tell on yourself. So he hit the 2 threes early, and then he just kept pounding going downhill. This is one of those games where, like, I don't know where I stop my metrics. Like, I don't really believe in games that are down when you're down by 20. And we were down by 30 with 5 minutes left in the third quarter. So I kind of stopped. I do this all the time. For those of you that are everydayers, you know this. I just got to stop my box score at some point. So I've stopped my box score at down 30 with 6 minutes left in the third. And at that point, Collier's 5 of 6. He has 14 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He padded his assist numbers late, just hitting KJ Martin all the time to make sure he got his assists. Colin was really pretty good at that point. The bummer at that point was that Key was 10 minutes and 0 for 2, no points, just a feckless performance. And Kyle was getting just bullied by Alfred Sengun. Bullied. Like, there was a play where Alfred Sengun went for a rebound, stuck his left arm out, and put his right arm into Kyle and just drove him out of the play. So I don't think Kyle's that weak. So that's like my thought on that one is like, be ready, be prepared, know what you're playing against, experience, gain it. Don't let that happen. I also just think like the other one is that, I mean, this is not the greatest circumstances right now. Like, I don't want to like hide that. You know, it's interesting. The coaches are still going full throttle. Isaiah Collier, Keontae George, Will Hardy, and some of the others went to the gym the other day to get extra work in. Like, guys are still working. It's not like we're on a country club routine right now. But it's noticeable that Lowry went home with a knee injury. The Jordan's it's clear. And we've won one game since February 28th. It's hard. Let's have some real sympathy. Remember, I thought Kyle Filipowski looked like he played 30 minutes in 4 straight games because of this, which is great. And he just looked completely worn out. Now, he's got 2 sides going on. He's putting up pretty good numbers in his last 6 starts. He's averaging, I think, 14 points and 10 rebounds and 2 assists. And he's putting together some really good stuff. He's also suddenly can't make a 3, shooting 28% from 3 in the stretch because he's probably exhausted. But that's part of the process. That's part of what you're learning. Suddenly not going to the free throw line the last 2 games. I'm assuming that that's fatigue. That his body, he's just fighting his body. I have no problem there. I don't love the fact that Keontae's back in a slump. I just think he's so talented, and I just keep waiting. There's just so many signs that it should be coming together, and there's so much skill there, and he's working hard, and it feels like it should come together. And then his last 6 games, he's shooting 32% for the field and 26% from 3. And it's this is another one of those little stretches. Now, last night, in kind of non-time, he hit 3 threes, got himself back over 33%. He'd had another one of these stretches where he was shooting 4 of his last 5 games. He'd shot below 35%. And he just came off a stretch where he sat for a few games. And I'm sure that, again, same thing. There's not a lot of support out there. He's wearing down. And it's mentally hard, but this is all hard. The one guy who really, frankly, seems unfazed by it is Isaiah. He just has a zest to him and an energy, and he's kind of figuring it out. Look at his free throw attempts recently. 4, 6, 8. Oh, okay. He's kind of figuring it out. No turnovers last night. 33 minutes and not a single turnover. Against Denver, when he went 0 for 7, he only had 1 turnover. I don't mind the turnovers, actually. I think the turnovers are activity and creating things and opening up possibilities. But we got worked last night, and probably going to get worked a few more times. It's a mentally difficult time right now. But let's see. Let's see who's got the fortitude. I think it's kind of fun. Going to play Indiana. They're crazy fast. You blink, they're going to blow by you. Let's see which of these guys. Yeah, we've won 1 game since February. It's hard. But let's see which one of these guys can pop up and have some tenacity. Because as I just showed you, we're not done with this. Let's hope not. I'll say that. On my end, sitting here, haven't loved this. Hasn't been the most fun thing I've ever been a part of. Hope we're not 1 and out. Because I think if you're going to commit to the task, you got to really, really commit. Washington's in year 2 of it. They've committed. They'll be in year 3 next year with us. Brooklyn's going to commit, though they have a lot of cap room. So we'll see if they commit. Do you have the stomach for it? And part of having the stomach for it is that Kyle Filipowski's worn out right now. Part of this having the stomach for it is seeing whether guys have the mental fortitude to get through it. Part of having the stomach for it is finding out that Isaiah Collier's got a little zest to him. So, super interesting times. And we're executing it perfectly. We got 5 games to go. It's Locked On Jazz, your daily podcast in the Utah Jazz on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Thank you very much for tuning in. Follow me on socials at DLock09. Grab the newsletter at LockedOnDaily.com. If you've not already subscribed or followed the program, please do. And if you have a moment, 5-star reviews are greatly appreciated, or thumbs up on YouTube. Hit the bell button to subscribe. We now send you the first ever 24/7 national NBA channel, Locked On NBA Today, or Locked On NBA. If you're on audio, check out Locked On NBA Game Night, every game, every night.